On my team. How are we, team? I hope you are having a splendid start to today. So we're going to kickstart this live in a few moments, and the goal here is to do a little cheeky podcast snack, and hopefully it's helpful and beneficial to everyone that's watching on. So if you're coming into this one live, let us know, guys. We're going to start this in 2 minutes, and we will be ready to rock and roll. So, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you sexy humans are coming into this live. We are everywhere on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and I don't know, I've lost track. But I like it. Guys, we're going to be talking about process, okay? So if you're coming into this one live, you know what to do. You need to click there and say, hey guys, good morning, Jace, I'm ready to rock and roll. And if you watch this on replay, get into the comments and hashtag replay. We're going to be starting in 30 seconds. How's your morning been, team? What is going on? How you feeling? We ready to do this or what? All right, I think we're good, and let's do it on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We're back with another podcast snack, and the goal here is to talk about this idea of you can do what works or you can do what you like. Now, I'm going to tell you the background to this conversation and why we're having it first. So we've got a fantastic client doing a challenge with us. Her name will remain anonymous at the moment, but she's 50 years old, been very healthy all her life, and just getting that frustrating period where despite seeming to do everything right, the weight's not really budging. So over the course of 3 weeks, her weight's budged about 1.6 kilos or something like that, which as a percentage of her body weight is actually pretty good, but it feels like it's not moving quickly enough. And I want to shout out, especially as I've started to work with more people in, the middle ages around 50 and the like, it gets challenging the older we get. And then second to that, if you are blessed on this earth to be a beautiful female, then certainly post-menopause, it's all the more challenging. And so I was on a coaching call with another coach who specializes in training older females. And she was like, Jace, I don't know how to put this any other way to you. It's just a shit show. As soon as menopause happens, we've got changes to hormones, changes to behavior, changes to mood, and sometimes the scales just don't make sense, right? And so to all of you that are in that zone, I feel it. So I'm going to put to you the situation of this client so you can sort of look at the lens that you might be dealing with the same thing through. Okay, so with this specific client, she's 50 years old, as I said. She's been a kind of like an active person all of her life. She's sitting at around 1,600 calories as a daily intake. She's getting her protein up as much as she possibly can. She's been trying to implement resistance training, but not nailing it completely. And so with all these factors, what's happened is she has lost 1.6 kilos, but then not too much more. And she's frustrated, right? Which I totally resonate with, totally understand. So in this circumstance, there's really two things that you could potentially do if you still wanted to lose some weight, right? You could certainly, what the evidence is telling us is that perhaps where she is now, she's in maintenance, okay? She's in maintenance with her calories versus what's going on in the burning side. So if you keep doing the same thing to expect a different result, it's probably not really going to happen because you're in calorie maintenance. So what do you do? Well, the first option is to do what essentially you've been doing all your life, which is cut calories. I'm not talking about this specific lady, I'm talking about people generally. We think the answer is always just massively slashing calories. In fact, our answer to losing weight is not looking at the quality of our meals, it's just eat less. Not even eat less calories, just like eat less. And so what ends up happening is we go through this period of where we eat less, but then what ends up happening is we get hungry again. So we eat again. So any weight that we lost, we put back on again. And it becomes this vicious cycle, which we tend to know as yo-yo weight loss or yo-yo dieting. And so a lot of people think that this is reserved for women, but it's certainly not the case. I see a lot of men doing it to the same degree as well. So option one is, yes, you could cut calories further. So if you're at 1600 calories, what do you cut to? Like 1400, 1200, where do you cut to? And whilst that will likely get some sort of a result, it becomes a slippery slope. The reason it becomes a slippery slope is when you start cutting calories low, you start to see the scales moving, but then at a certain point, it becomes unsustainable to eat that level of calories and have a good life. I don't know about you guys, but for me, like, food is everything. It's central to everything we do. So we don't want to go without food, right? We don't want to be not able to. And particularly this lovely lass, she's a really social girl. She wants to go out and do things, right? She wants to go on camping trips and go and hang with a kid. That's the goal. So all of a sudden, if you remove food and the pleasure of food from that situation, it's not a very fun existence. So if you end up at 1,000 calories or 1,200 calories, and like, yes, you might have been able to get a little bit of weight off, but the sustainability of that calorie position is not very good. So what ends up happening? Well, you break your diet and you start increasing calories again. Now, because you've eaten such low calories, the impact that has on your overall metabolism is it tells your body to slow everything down. Because we'll call her Mary, that's not her name, but we'll call her Mary. Mary is going through a period of, I wouldn't say starvation, but a restriction of calories. So if the brain is detecting that, oh my God, if she keeps losing weight at the rate of knots, there's not going to be any of Mary left. So what do you think the brain's going to do? The brain is going to turn down all the unnecessary calorie burning that's happening. It's going to slow everything down. And for a woman in menopause, that's not a good idea. It's going to slow everything down. It's going to stop burning the unnecessary calories to try to preserve this person's weight, to stop them from eating themselves into starvation. Okay? So this is why cutting is not necessarily a good thing. And so if you look at what are the other things that she's doing, so sounds like she's slightly under in her protein intake. So she's not nailing that. She's not doing a lot of resistance training. She's, at 1,600 calories thinking of moving it south. All of the indications that the brain is picking up is that this is a threat to her survival, right? There's no signals being sent to the brain to increase our metabolism, to tell us that, hey, the diet's over. So option one is when you were in a maintenance, you can cut further, or you can do a bunch more cardio to try to get back into a deficit. The challenge with it is probably not viable. And the title of this video is you can either do what works or do what you like. Yeah, you could do the cut. Or alternatively, you could play the longer game, which is the complete opposite to everything that you've been told before. And that is to start to not worry about short-term changes on the scales. Very difficult to do. You might say, easier said than done, Jace. Totally get it. But instead what we do is we start to do the things that signal to the body to push our metabolism up. What are they? Number one, slowly increasing your calories. We can do it as slow as you want. This sends the signal to the brain that, hey, the calories are coming back. So you do not need to suppress my metabolism anymore. This is called reverse dieting. It's option one. That's signal one. Signal 2 is hitting a protein target, getting your protein up. And what that does is signals to the body that the building blocks of which it is made, protein, is abundant. Number 3, resistance training. Now, this is where I want to focus this discussion going forward. Resistance training is the long-term play if you want to manage your weight. Resistance training in the short term doesn't burn a lot of calories compared to cardio. But what it does is builds the tissue, the machinery that demands the calories. So think of it almost like investing in stocks or shares or house. Over the long term it pays off, but in the short term it doesn't feel like the quickest investment, right? When you build muscle, when you build, as you ladies like to call it, tone, which is actually not a thing. It just means you haven't got much fat appearing on top of your muscle. That's what it basically means. But at the central cause of this is you're building muscle. Building muscle is the best way to make sure your metabolism firstly stops dropping off the face of the planet, but combined with increasing calories helps you to push your metabolism north. And what this is going to mean is that you set yourself up for a future cut, a future deficit. So take the example of my beautiful client here. She's currently at 1,600 calories. She's not getting much on a further cut. So what we could do here is start to increase calories next week to say 1,700. And we keep it at 1,700 for a couple of weeks. And likely she's not going to see much fat gain at all because it's just not that much of an increase. Couple of weeks later, we increase it to 1,800. So we're gently lifting the calories up in what's called a reverse diet. At the same time, we are pairing this with the type of exercise that signals to the body to build muscle, which is resistance training. You don't need to be doing this necessarily in a gym. You could be doing this at home with a band workout. You could be doing this with some basic dumbbells at home. Something that forces the muscles to resist the load that's being applied to them. So we start the combination of increasing calories, hitting our protein target, doing resistance training. The impression that the brain takes of that is, oh, okay, so the whole fat loss thing, that's over. Calories are back in abundance. There's no threat to survival. Well, in that case, we can take the breakers off the metabolism and start letting it gently increase. Does this make sense? So over time, if you're willing to play the long game, we might be able to get this client's maintenance calories back to, say, 21, 22, 2,300 calories. How good would that be for a person that's a social person? Because guess what? You can slip a couple of wines into that calorie intake. You can have a bit of dangerous food if you want. You're not consigned to this low-calorie jail. And this is the exact opposite wisdom that most people teach you. It's like, you want to lose weight, just cut the calories really quickly and the fat will come off. The problem is, this was never about losing weight. This was about keeping the weight off. This, I'll say it again, most people don't have a problem losing weight. Everyone has a problem keeping it off. Listen up. The reason why is because, the simplest way for me to lose weight is chop off my arm or just don't eat. I'll weigh less on the scales. But at what cost? The damage done to the metabolism over the long term is not worth it. And all you need to do is see these people that do the biggest loser, that don't do a lot of gym training. They're just flogged in cardio. Calories are cut really low. Yes, they lose lots of fat, but they lose a ton of muscle. The implication of that is their metabolism crashes down to earth, and the moment they leave the show and start eating like a normal human again, not even badly, just a normal human again, they've got this really suppressed metabolism. So the moment they start eating again, normally, all of a sudden, the fat stacks back on again because of they're coming off the back of such deprivation. Most people don't have a fat loss problem. Most people have a managing their weight over the long term problem. And the key to this is including resistance training. And people, this is really the point that I wanted to make for this little podcast bite, is that people will say, oh yeah, but I'm just not a gym guy. I'm just not a gym girl. So my question is, how important is this to you? Do you want to do what works, or do you want to do what you like? The choice is yours. Now, not speaking specific to the client, just saying you can keep doing all the cardio you want. Cardio is great for the heart, for the lungs. But as a fat loss tool, if you're just doing cardio, what's going to happen the moment you stop doing cardio? If you're burning 300 calories a day doing cardio, good. But what happens when you stop doing it? You stop burning the 300 calories, which means that your 300 calories now back into your, less off your burn, into your calorie balance equation. And so the problem with cardio is that as a fat loss tool, the moment you stop doing it, then the benefit stops. Yes, heart and lung, I'm talking about from a weight management position. You compare this to resistance training. If you put the work in, particularly when you're young enough to get in the gym or do it at home and build some muscle, build some tone, whatever you want to call it, not only are you going to get stronger, you're going to get stronger. You do not want to be a 60-year-old woman that can't move things, can't pick up their grandkids. You want to get stronger so you can do things, right? This is one of the things that I'm seeing a lot now in gyms is ladies of my mum's vicinity, late 60s and 70s, getting in and they're doing gym probably because their doctors told them that if you do not start, you're gonna fall over, fracture your hip, and end up dying within 2 years. This is because when you don't do resistance training and you're a lightweight older woman, you have your bones are brittle because they've had no reason to remineralize. You haven't put them under any strain. Doing resistance training forces the bones to remineralize. They're sitting there going, oh my God, we're under all this strain. I better add some more calcium and phosphorus and bone grit into this to try to maintain the integrity of this bone so it doesn't break. Resistance training is the answer. It's the answer to your metabolism. The studies coming out now showing the benefits of resistance training in mental health, it's unmatched. It is unmatched. It is, okay, you go to the gym, you do something hard, you do something uncomfortable. There's something about challenging yourself under a bar or a squat rack or whatever it is for you that is very leveling. But I'm not a gym person. Okay, that's fine. Become one. Do you want to do what works, or do you want to do what you want to do? I'm bad at a lot of things, like a fucking lot of things. But one thing I can tell you with all the experience of my own life, all the experience of coaching over 3,000 clients, is I can tell you this. The men and women that do resistance training are always the ones that win. They begin to enjoy the process. I've got someone commenting here, once you start, it becomes fun and addictive. It's that thing that you get a little bit pumped after the gym and you're like, whoa, I can see this feels good. I'm feeling stronger. I'm feeling better about myself. It boosts your self-esteem. It boosts your confidence. And guess what? You're the nan or the pop at 50 or 60 years old that can pick up the grandkids and run around still. You need muscle to do that. If you got no muscle, you're going to fall over and you're just going to break. That's not a position you want to be in. So, rounding out this little podcast bite, which has gone longer than I thought, it's the passion that I have. One of the key comments that I heard the other day is the world doesn't have an obesity epidemic. The world doesn't have an obesity epidemic. The world has a muscle deficit epidemic. Muscle deficit epidemic. And I couldn't agree with that more. Think about the reasons why. We've got our kids sitting at computers where and I'm the first to put my hand up here and say I sit in a desk all day, which is why I have to force myself to go to the gym. You sit in a desk, all your weight is stabilized. There's nothing here to instill muscle in your body. So what happens? It falls away because it's not being used. And if you're not going into the gym to try to make up for that, what's going to end up happening is you just become this pile of weak bones. Whether you're overweight or not is irrelevant. If you've got a deficit of muscle, you're going to have a crappy metabolism and you're going to struggle with weight for the rest of your life. I'm going to love you and leave you there, guys. Hopefully this has been helpful. The message coming through loud and clear. I'm just really passionate about this because I know it works. So you can either do what you want to do or you can do what works, and the choice is yours. Love you guys. See you in the next episode.